Ladies and gentlemen, the session highlights Indonesia's potential in assets tokenization, fueled by its young population, digital growth, natural resources, and government support. It will explore opportunities in tokenized financial products, natural resources, and ESG assets, emphasizing financial inclusion, economic growth, and sustainability. And for this interesting theme, this panel will be moderated by Mr. Daniel Kim, a CEO and co-founder Tiger Research. He is the CEO and founder of Tiger Research, a Web3 consulting firm in Seoul, specializing in market research and business development. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Daniel Kim.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to moderate this meaningful session. Today, we're going to be really excited to share our research and our journey on talking about the opportunity of Indonesia's tokenization market. A lot of people think about New York, Singapore, and Abu Dhabi as one of the centers or hub of capital markets or tokenization, but while we do our research with our partners like Saison Capital, D3 Labs, BRI Ventures, and OJK, we kind of found out that Indonesia is such a market with full of opportunities and a bright future together. So today we're going to invite one of the leaders in the asset tokenization market and in blockchain of Indonesia, and also our distinguished analysts from OJK to discuss about and share our views on the potential and opportunities that lies in Indonesia. So before we start, I'd like to make some introductions to our panelists. First, Chin In from Saison Capital. Chin In is the partner at Saison Capital, but he was once also an entrepreneur who had made a successful exit in the startup market. He's also regarded as Forbes 30 under 30 and entrepreneurs under 27. Next is Markus from BRI Venture. Markus is Chief Investment Officer of BRI Venture, and he's also the chairman of Indonesian Startup Association. Now I'd like to introduce Chung Ying, Co-Chief Executive Officer of D3 Labs. Chung Ying is a well-known and reputed startup entrepreneur in Indonesia. He was once Chief Strategy Officer of Toko Crypto and now building the future together with the team at D3 Labs. Finally, I'd like to introduce our distinguished guest from OJK, Mr. Aldyth from as a Digital Innovation Market Finance Group. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
There's a lot of crowd in front of us. Are you ready?
Yes.
And I know we have partnered together to really study deeply and research what are the really potential and opportunities, but also some challenges that lies ahead in tokenization market in Indonesia. So let's naturally and casually share what we have learned and just share some of the facts that we believe that lies in Indonesia. So first, Chinin, I heard you recently visited Mexico, United States, and also Brazil, right? Oh my God, it must have took a long flight from these lands.
Just a little.
How long was the flight?
30 hours.
Oh my God. But I'm sure you have learned a lot throughout the phases during your long flights and your visits to all these emerging markets and also matured markets like United States. What do you see is the potential of Indonesia comparatively to all these countries that you have visited, and why do you think it's so significantly important?
Look, I think it starts from a very simple premise of emerging markets versus mature markets. In mature markets, markets like US and Singapore, things run relatively efficiently. So the demand, the hunger for things like tokenization, yes, it's there, but it's on a whole different level where you go to an emerging market, one like Indonesia, one like Brazil, one like Mexico, right? So I think the state of growth, the state of need for tokenization, it's different. But I think in Indonesia, the reason why we sort of teamed up and do this report, it's really because not only do we have a young and tech-savvy population, which arguably could be said in Latin America, in sub-Saharan Africa, but what's key is Indonesia actually leads the charge in cryptocurrency adoption, right? I think earlier there was already the stats that was quoted. Indonesia is number 3 or number 4 globally. And I think that really points to the potential of tokenization, that this is not just an institutional game. Of course, institutions, regulators play a critical role, but really it's each and every one of you in the audience here, right, that will participate in this and get to benefit from it.
I really like how you compared other countries and also kind of highlighted how Indonesia is leading one of the crypto adoption indexes. And thank you for your answer. Markus, so I understand you are leading the investment arm of one of the largest state-owned banks of Indonesia. What a big job. In that perspective, like, what do you see the opportunities that you see on tokenization from a traditional banking perspective?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's glad to be here, and it's also good to be with the gentleman who shared the same view, especially on asset tokenizations and how we can envision the future of tokenization market in Indonesia. So let me start with one perspective. There's one book that I read when I started learning about bankings and financial infrastructures. There are 3 things that will never change in financial services. Number 1 is how we can actually savings value. I mean the products can be varied. Can be savings products, can be deposit, but the ability to save will never change. Number 2 is the ability to make a transfers of payment. You can think of it in many, many forms, such as payments, such as remittance, such as cross-border, like transactions and whatnot. There's a lot of things that is actually falls under the category of transferring value. And last but not least is the ability to make credit, which is how, as customers, you can actually earn credit, such as loans, debt, and whatnot. But I believe as we enter into more and more financial revolution, especially with the new risings of technology such as blockchain and whatnot, the essentials of financial service will never change, but the form, the product will vary depending on what is the customer actually needs. In simple terms, back then, where credit cards penetration is very, very low, we see a high usage of buy now, pay later, right? And many more examples. I think you guys probably already aware and probably used in your phone and whatnot. So talking about tokenizations, the way we see tokenization is how this technology can help and leverage the current problem, the current existing things that we can make more efficient and see from a different perspectives. Such as mentioned by Chin, one of the big issues in our financial infrastructure or services today, there's a lot of inefficiencies. And one premise that tokenization prove or at least give to the market is how to make it more transparent, to make it more efficient. One simple examples, say you're an MSME. One of the biggest problem with MSME are access to credit, access to funding. And you can think of it this way, how tokenization can help by democratizing investment. There's one usage, that's why in our report, please, by all means later, look at the reports. We kind of analyze and give a perspective how tokenized money can actually help and give a real use cases. So I think that's a very good example how traditional banks can benefit or can start to explore with this new type of technology.
I mean, I'm kind of fascinated. I mean, this is coming from a traditional banker's perspective. I'll just ask a follow-up question just to this. What do you think is the secret? Because when I see like the more leaders in blockchain, even traditional banks rarely put their hands on tokenization yet. only like the innovative ones. And to my perspective, BRI is actually a leader. What do you think is the secret behind like a big organization, a state-owned enterprise, being so active about this? I mean, is it because we're leadership, or is it because the Indonesian leaders also see a big potential of blockchain market?
I think leader is a very big statement. I'm not gonna say we are the leaders, but at least in our perspective, we start our first step. Because starting the first step is always the hardest, right? So, and the way we believe is, think of it this way, a very big corporate, not only us, but you can imagine a lot of big corporates, their advantage and their strength is at the very least two things: their knowledge within the industries, and also their experience that have been in the industry for so long. But what are the new technologies bring to the market, such as D3, right, is speed and ways of innovation. So when these two advantages is actually combined, we can see a lot more opportunities being explored in the market. I think D3's done a lot of interesting projects in the market, and I really respect D3 in doing that. And I really hope that there are more startups, there are more like innovators also explore. There's a lot of potentials. I mean, I just mentioned one thing, which is the financial services, but then there are still commodities that we can tokenize. There are real estates that we can talk. Or even I talked with Daniel before the panel. Ships even can also be tokenized, right? So I think the ideas is limitless. Is how we bring these use cases into our market.
Thank you very much. Chung, so the former two speakers were investors. At the end of the day, you're a builder, right? I mean, it's really fascinating to see you spending so much time and effort in this market building. But as a builder, what do you see as is the most biggest potential of Indonesia market, and what is the most attractive asset class or asset that you think will be a good fit for tokenization? Can you share your perspective?
So for us, our side, we are in a unique position where we actually deal with both the asset originators like BRI side or other banks that I work with, and also at the asset buyer side. So one thing that we have theoreticized is that as of now, a lot of Web3 users or crypto users, they are already familiar or into, let's say, US dollar treasury bills. So currently, US dollar treasury bills, I think it offers about 4.3% APY. And that is our first step, where these are the group of users that we want to target. Because when US interest rate environment is high, alternative assets is less appealing. But with now lower interest rate environment that's coming, most probably 3% by next year, 2% by 2026, this is a part where alternative yield assets become more attractive. And the one that we identified that immediately can be replacement of UST bills is something like private credits, commonly stated 8 to 10% APY, or even let's say as simple as Indonesia government bonds. Or currently we are also working with BTN on tokenizing some of the potential real estate products, MBS, ABS, or REITs. So these are some of the category of products that we realize that it's immediately of demand due to the fact that US interest rate is dropping and the T-bills are getting less attractive. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, and it's really good to see like the macro view and how you put that in perspective in Indonesia. Thank you. So, Mr. Aldyth, thank you for coming to this panelist. I mean, I've been traveling a lot nowadays, but it's really great to see a regulator is so friendly and very pro market and you're actually being on stage with us. And thank you very much for this, and your boss as too. Can you explain us how OJK is balancing innovation with investor protection and promoting the industry, especially in tokenization? I'd like to learn about more.
Okay. So as mandated in our Omnibus Law about strengthening and deepening financial sectors, Indonesian FSA is required to provide a regulatory sandbox enabling the players to enter into the market in a safe and controlled space. In the regulatory sandbox, it enables the innovators and regulators to collaborate to test the new business models. During the time in the regulatory sandbox, Indonesia FSA, OJK, will assess the risk and provide inputs to enhance the corporate governance, the customer risk. This process will help us to understand the new business models, enabling us to regulate, giving the feedbacks for the regulations that will be adopted in Indonesia. So, of course, we will have robust regulations, especially in the consumers' protections. We believe that consumers' protection remains the top priority to support the industry growth. So, yeah, in the sandbox, our approach is quite different. Instead of traditional regulator and industry approach relations, we use a collaborative method to involving innovators, to giving us the feedbacks. What should we regulate? What are the best practice that happening in the other countries, and so on. Yes, that's all.
Well, thank you very much for your answer. Well, I just have a follow-up easy question, but as a regulator, do you feel it is very tough to study all these changing regulations? Well, like, how do you consume information, and what is your best way of communicating with learning about this industry?
So, actually, that's an easy question, but it's hard to do. So, of course, we just held our Indonesian Financial Summit Expo, if so we call it. So there is a policy dialogue. It's a separated forum for the regulators in Indonesia. We talk a lot with the other regulators there, and we also ask the industries or the associations. We always talk a lot with them. Or I see Bu Asih there. I also talk a lot with Bu Asih for the what kind of innovations or the blockchains or everything about it.
Well, I do admire communication.
So let me add a bit also. I think one good thing that we have in Indonesia is that regulators at OJK is very open-minded. So this is a part where it's really up to us as a builder to spend the effort to really work together with regulators. I think Tigran, my partner here, has spent countless hours in engaging OJK, and not just one department, but several departments. We also spend countless sessions, workshops with the bank side to really educate them. But one good thing is they are open to listen, they are open to evaluate and partner together.
Thank you, Chung. So, Chinen, like, kind of back to you. I mean, I think you can provide a very good perspective from a global bird's eye view, because you travel a lot, you're on a global venture capital. And during our research, we concluded that there's a potential of about $88 billion worth of market that's going to exist in Indonesia the next 10 years. How do you compare that to other countries, and what do you think is the merit of Indonesian market in that terms?
So I think the report that all of us on this stage jointly did together reviewed that we think the asset tokenization market in Indonesia could hit 88 billion by 2030, right? And I think what's clear, it's Indonesia, it's not the only country that's going to benefit from this. This is like technology, it's going to benefit countries globally, especially emerging markets. But I think what's key, it's really the opportunity for Indonesia to stand out in particular asset classes, right? And I think the asset class that we sort of focus on the report, it's really around commodities, right? Today, Indonesia, globally, it's one of the largest, if not the largest exporter of things like coal and palm oil, and also the top few exporters of things like nickel and other commodities, right? And if you really think about the commodity supply chain today, it's extremely inefficient. There are multiple middlemen, there are severe trust issues, and there's just so much costs that are incurred. So what we really see behind the $88 billion, because it's just a big number, right? What does $88 billion really mean? I think behind the $88 billion is truly an opportunity for Indonesia to set the gold standard and really be a category leader in this. And I think that's, to me, what's the most exciting. There is no clear leader yet, right? So this is a level playing field where regulators all around the world are trying to figure out how this works. markets are also trying to figure out what this means. So it's a bit different from, I would say, like even fintech, right? Because fintech, to be honest, a lot of what we see in Southeast Asia had already been done in US, Europe, right? That's why people always say we're like copycat, and to some extent it's true, but I think asset tokenization, it's like, look, everyone is on this level playing field. This entire blockchain technology only existed 10, 15 years ago, right? So there's no one that can call themselves an expert, a true market leader, and I think that's what truly excites us.
Well, I really liked how you said this industry is a level playing field. You know, so there's so much potential equally, you know, for all of us here to win this market, and there's no certain winner. So, Markus, so I mean, I like Chung how he brought his global view, but you're a professional in this market. So what is your view on like tokenizing financial products in Indonesia? What do you think is the first commerce? What do you think is the priority? And do you agree with Chung on that commodity is the most prospective?
Definitely. So I think just to add another perspectives from what Chin is actually mentioned, when we talk about commodity, especially in local market, there are list of priorities. Commodities that are more open for tokenizations or is actually harder for tokenizations. And I think there's a lot of factor that also needs to play in, such as one, regulation is definitely a big factor, how it can really affect and how do we comply within the framework of the regulations. But at the same time, it's definitely the supply and demand, right? Are the parties that we're going to trade with will actually be open if the asset or the commodity is actually being tokenized or not, right? Because I think one thing that we all need to also realize when we talk about tokenization is one thing. But how you hold your real world asset is as important, if not more important than tokenizing itself. A lot of companies in the market can claim that they can tokenize any asset, right? Tokenization, I think, if the problem is technology, it requires technical solution. That's my point. But if the problem is more strategic, right? How do you ensure that the asset is actually real? How do you do the best practice for being a custodial bank when you hold this asset, right? How do you ensure there is no fraud or whatsoever, and you need to govern within the regulatory boundaries? There's another problem that we need to talk to, right? So I think back to your earlier question, Daniel, is how we see from a zooming up bigger perspectives, right? So definitely community-wise, I really feel gold is something that we probably can tokenize earlier. There's a lot of like use cases already within gold itself. I think we can buy digital gold today, but with tokenizing gold, now we can do 24/7, meaning there will be a lot of more liquidity that will be going to the market. I think besides gold, there's a lot of opportunities also in financial services. I think in the previous sessions when I heard people talk about how we can tokenize things like government bonds, how we can tokenize things to financial services, or even think of it this way. The mass market really needs a better alternative investment, right? But some of the good alternative investment require you to invest quite a lot of capital before you can actually get the products. If we can tokenize this, such, I don't know, corporate bonds, government bonds to a certain extent, and fractionalize it with tokenizations, it's also something that will benefit the mass by a lot, right? So I think to really answer this question, and you really can see in our reports, we really dive down. Each like assets class, each commodity, what are the potential, the pros and cons, and how do we actually see it benefit as a whole context of Indonesian market.
No, it's really fascinating because you're an expert here in this market. You have a deep view about how you think about prioritization, and I agree with you. Chung, I know we have investors here, a regulator here, but also think since it's blockchain, we got to talk a little bit technical. What do you think is the requirement of the technical infrastructure to really benefit and bring value to the Indonesian market?
So I think one thing that we explore really closely with banks like BI is blockchain have different way of setup. You have your public permissionless blockchain, you have public permission blockchain, you have your private permission blockchain. So these are the three key kind of blockchain infrastructure that we have been seeing. And what I can say is that there's no one best blockchain for all. It's use case by use case. So let's say if we are talking more on like a wholesale-based kind of usage, B2B, where privacy is important, private permission blockchain is the way to go. But if let's say we are something like tokenizing a government bond or tokenizing something that's more sensitive to the financial core infrastructure, but this is to target at the mass market, then we need to use something like a public permission blockchain so that at least when we work with regulators like OJK or the banks, we are sure that if black swan event happen, the risk management is there. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much we talk about benefits, we do not want to risk the financial stability of the country. And risk management is definitely one of the key things when we review all this new technology in terms of technical part with all the different partners. Public permissionless, good as a distribution channel because let's say like just now we have Atos, we have different layer ones there that already have all the mass market. But how do we become the bridge to bridge in the traditional asset that prefers like a more permission blockchain and to the mass market like a permissionless blockchain is our role to be there. Yeah.
Can you, as a follow-up, can you share a little bit about what you at D3 Labs are doing to pursue the things that you have just said, or anything you want to share that you're particularly proud of?
So I think currently, in short, we are doing two kind of infrastructure. First is the asset tokenization layer, where we work with different banks to bring the asset onto the blockchain. And second is the fundamental blockchain layer to how to build a public permission blockchain with the different financial institutions partner. So that's how we are very proud of ourselves because I think so far when you see a company out there, it's either they are focusing on the layer one side or they are focusing on the asset tokenization platform side. But for us, when we review it with all our partners, it's not enough to just focus on one because currently a lot of layer one blockchains, they are focusing on the full permissionless blockchain. And I think the experience of us dealing with the bank will allow us to realize that there need to be a bridge between that to be able to bring all the assets to those permissionless blockchain. And that's why we come up with our own public permission blockchain that's serving as the bridge to bridge between the TradFi space and the DeFi space.
By the way, if anyone's not familiar with the words, please look at our research. It has all good explanations.
At the end of the day, this is just a thriller session for you guys to read the paper.
Thank you. Mr. Aldyth, so we talked about investment, we talked about building technical things, but I also think regulators are builders, building the framework and building the environment for the industry to really play in. What regulatory frameworks are being developed at OJK for different tokenized assets, and if you can share at a level?
So first, allow me to introduce the sandbox participants. First, currently we have gold tokenizations, government bond tokenizations, and property tokenizations. So during our time assessing these three real-world asset tokenizations, we realized that not every token lives in the same ecosystems. So such as the gold tokenizations, the token is being sold in the exchanges, but in the property tokenizations, we see that the market is not in the exchanges, the coin exchanges. We realized that it might have different marketing platform for the customers to buy the tokens. So they also building their platform for selling their tokens in the property. So after we assess the tokenizations through the business, through the regulatory sandbox, currently I don't have any clear answers for that yet, but we are already asking feedbacks for the innovators. If there is a possibility of different regulations between the being applied between each tokenized assets. So what we currently see from our research, we found that not every token living in the same, and the risk is different. There might be different regulations for different real-world assets that being tokenized. That's all for me.
Maybe I can add a bit on this. So what our experience is also, at the end of the day, there's so many different ways of legally structuring the asset And different tokens have different legal meaning. At the end of the day is how big the risk is. If based on this legal structure it goes wrong, what is the impact to the financial system? So it's like you can tokenize an asset based on the fund structure. You can tokenize the underlying asset. You can create an SPV elsewhere to tokenize the equity of the SPV. There's so many ways of tokenizing something. Yeah.
Well, I think that's all the questions I've prepared, but thank you so much for everyone for answering all these questions, especially Ms. Studies in your busy time. We have 1 minute left, so I might open one question to the audience. If you have any questions to the investors, to the builder, or to the regulator. Any brave soul can raise your hand? Oh, I guess it's a shy. Oh, here you go, sir.
Hello everyone, my name is Jason Yapri. I'm from Pelita Banks Academy. My question is actually for BRI Ventures. I would like to know, like, among all the startups, what are the most interesting startups in the blockchain space that you invest in? And yeah, I think that's the question. Thank you.
Maybe Chung Ying and Markus, you can answer shortly.
Yeah, I won't say names, but I think we're looking more into infrastructures. So we're looking more into infrastructure startups that build infrastructures within the blockchain ecosystem. I think we're open and we're looking for startups especially in that field.
Chinin?
Well, we are investors in D3 Labs, so that's biased. But maybe I just give a quick 20-second explanation on why, right? I think everyone is clear on what D3 Labs does. I think for us, we fully agree with what Markus said earlier, that technology is no longer a differentiator when it comes to tokenization. In fact, we see, even though this is blockchain, this is Web3, we see more similarities to be more like a fintech business than a Web3 business, right? So we think that it's really coming down to an appreciation and collaboration with regulators that's non-negotiable, right? Like, you don't start a payment company without figuring out your license, right? And same thing, right? And secondly, it's also distribution, because that's going to be key, right? Anyone can tokenize anything, but at the end of the day, are you able to sell it? Are you able to generate liquidity? Those are the two key things. So regulation and distribution.
Well, thank you both for the answer. And the host is chasing me because it says time's up. But thank you very much for listening to our panel. And please read our research. Thank you very much.
Everybody, please give a round of applause for the session. And I would like to invite the moderator and all of the speakers to come to the center of the stage. We're going to have some photo station. All right. I will count down 3, 2, 1. Give your best smile. All right. One more time. 3, 2, 1.